I'll start with a simple prayer. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Padapadme Tvayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Namashri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharine Sthapakaya Cha Dharmasya Sarva Dharma Swarupine Avataro Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. First, just want to thank you, Vani, and I don't know, Jiva and Shushanti. You guys, that's really an awesome band, really, and that's I always had that idea that we can see on the screen, and so we can chant the Sanskrit, and then we can know the meaning. In the Yoga Sutras, that's called Tat Japas Artha Bhavanam. So anything becomes so much more powerful, like when we know the meaning, and also when it's sung with bhav as well. So all of them, I think that's. Thank you so much. I don't know where Jiva went and Shushant. Anyways, just wanted to first say that. Now our topic today is based on an. It's called Cultivating Spiritual Habits in an Age of Distraction. I wrote this article actually. I wrote an article called "Can God Vision and Television Go Together?" There is this Swami Asheshananda ji. How many of you have heard of him? Okay, you've heard of him. He was the last living disciple of the Holy Mother, and he lived to the age of 97 years old. He was in the Portland Vedanta Society, and he passed away in 1996, I think. Yes, 1996. I was very, very small. I had the chance to serve him for 6 weeks. I was just a toddler, but so that was like a lifetime memory, although I didn't realize it at the time. So he used to always say this, God vision and television cannot go together. Now, not so many people now watch television anymore. So I tried to make the article, can God vision and internet vision go together? But one of my friends, Swami Medhananda, I passed it by him. He said, no, what's internet vision? So let's bring this back to our own spiritual lives. So many of you just got initiated this week. Okay. How many of you have got initiation? Okay, good. We're still recovering. It's such a spiritual feast that, we're all like blown away. So the thing is that when you have initiation, that's receiving the mantra. But that's just the beginning. The Guru's instructions are there. So there's something in the Yoga Sutras, those of you, it's called dharana. You've received something. So now can you hold it? So Ramakrishna used to say what? That like you're riding in a boat, but the boat won't go very far if there's too many holes in the boat, right? So same thing with our minds. Swami Vivekananda used to say this. You may have the grace of your Guru, the 330 million gods in Hinduism, all of them. But still, if you don't have the grace of what? Your own mind, everything comes to naught. Not that, no, everything will come, but it'll just take longer. So now I would raise a question. We're living in now a new age. You could say this is AI age, internet age. We're in a stage of transition right now. So we have to ask the question, how do our virtual habits affect our spiritual life? I'm going to today discuss an article I wrote, and I think it was posted last night. You can see it afterwards. It's on Can God Vision and Television Go Together? And in that article, I quoted someone named Nicholas Carr. There's space right there. Someone can come outside. Well, please come inside. Nicholas Carr, who wrote the book The Shallows. If anyone, it's good that we have a full house. So this is like a problem of the have and the have-nots. So better to have this problem than the other one. So yeah. So how our internet habits affect us. I wrote this article by Nicholas Carr. It was actually in 2010. He wrote a book called The Shallows, How the Internet Affects Our Brains. How many have heard of that book at all? It's won the Pulitzer Prize for writing. And in there, he made a very interesting argument. He said that with the advent of the internet, I'm just going to say his argument, and then we're going to go through, we're going to unpack it. With the advent of the internet, it's unraveling what's called the linear mind, which was formed about 500 years ago when was the Gutenberg press? It was around 1400s, I think 1490, when is 1492? And that's when Columbus came. I always get that confused. 1400 something. He said since then, when the Gutenberg press was first printed, actually, I think the first Bible is in Harvard University, and it's under lock and key. Somebody tried to steal it one time, and then they didn't go very far, so now it's under lock and key everywhere. It's in the Widener Library. So the Gutenberg press, after that came, if you look at the Gutenberg press, that was in Latin. And the first types of prints were very long, very, very long. No punctuation. Then what happened, slowly and gradually, these books became more subtle. They became shorter sentences, punctuation, stops, full stops. What then happens then? It allows human beings to contemplate, to think over the ideas being presented. Otherwise, without that, he also mentioned that it's the primitive instincts of human beings. What is it? Survival, hunting, survival, like that. Fight and flight and fright. Nowhere does it talk about concentration, especially in Western society. In Eastern society, since time immemorial, we say the sages used to meditate, okay? And this Shravana, this oral tradition of communicating the Upanishads from one to the other. But, so anyways, and that's also here too, in Western culture too. It was also prayers there, but it was not so encouraged. So this is what we were talking about as a whole. It helped to cultivate this idea of concentration, which is not inherent to human beings. It's not inherent to animals. It's actually, I would argue, if you have these three different stages, animalhood, manhood, godhood, right? So we're all actually struggling. Our first struggle is go from animal to man. We might be a human being, but that doesn't mean we're still struggling with our animal nature for the most part. Then once we get there, then the next start, like all of you, we're trying to go from what? Manhood to divinity. Yes, realize our own nature. Okay, now I'm going to ask a question to all of you. I want an honest answer. Do you all know the term doom scrolling? How many of you have heard the term doom scrolling? Okay, Glenn knows it. The definition is doom scrolling or doom surfing is the act of spending an excessive amount of time reading large quantities of news, particularly negative news on the internet and social media. So I'll raise my hand. Okay, I don't mind. How many of us do that? Or know somebody who does that? It's easier to say that we know somebody who does that. We can't face the brute in one day. So anyways, another practice of doom scrolling, they say it goes back to an older phenomenon from the 1970s called the mean world syndrome, which describes as the belief that the world is a more dangerous place to live in than it actually is as a result of long-term exposure to violence-related content on television. So we can think about that in today's thing, and it's not just violence, right? Now it's politics, it's polarization. In fact, on May 23rd, this year, US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued an advisory warning about the potential dangers of social media for the mental health of children and teens. That's what we're talking about nowadays. But I'm interested in something else. And I did not find this in Harvard, unfortunately. It's on how the internet affects us cognitively. And that's what I argued in my article that I wrote. that I took what Nicholas Carr wrote about and argued that it affects us as spiritual aspirants, our ability to think, feel, and will. It compromises our ability. We'll go over that. I took that argument, I built upon it. And what is thinking, feeling, and willing related to in our spiritual practices? This thinking, your Advaita Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, right? Feeling, what yoga is that related to? Bhakti yoga, right? So how do we cultivate the idea of feeling? Feeling this divinity within and without, everywhere. And willing. You can say this is Raja Yoga, sitting down in meditation, closing the eyes. I think in the Yoga Sutras 1.12, Satu Dirgha Kala Nairantarya Sat Karaha Asevitaha Drira Bhumihi. So this meditation, which we talk about in the Yoga Sutras, it has to be practiced by uninterrupted meditation, uninterrupted, without break. So what's happening now with our lives, actually? We have to raise this question. It's a rhetorical question for all of us to think about. In fact, I would say that let's just take a moment, all of us, and think about what are my internet habits. This is not one size fits all. Some of you may, especially my mom, they don't know much about the internet, but she loves watching Swami Shatmananda's Bengali lectures. In fact, now she goes to sleep with that on. And she's the most disciplined of people I know. So one thing also about the internet we have to understand. This is in the Yoga Sutras. Vyasa gives this commentary to, I think, 1.15 of the Yoga Sutras. He says, the mind is like a river. It moves in two directions simultaneously, towards the divine and towards the world. So why we talk about good books, reading holy things, holy company, is to give more momentum to that mind moving towards the divine. But now we have another problem. What is it? Brain hack. The internet's now it's something not inert, it's hacking into us. So it's trying to actually move us in a different direction. These are just things to think about. So now it's not all doom and gloom, that's not fair either. We have to be, as Vedantins, and as a lawyer, we should see both sides of everything, not just one side. That's probably one of the problems with the internet. I'd say it's cut down on the ability to see both sides of the thing. But this is the Vedantic practice, actually, that I've talked about again and again. Vedanta teaches us. Who here has taken Vedanta Sarva? Okay, so what do they describe as this Viveka?
Discrimination.
Yes, Sata Sadvyam Anirvachaniyam. And the Sata Sad Vichar, right? Discrimination between the real and the unreal. So that has to be brought not just in the scriptures, not just in analogies, but no, into real life, in our real life experiences. So there's many boons. You watch Vedantic lectures on the internet. You can do so much good content is there. So yet at the same time, I'll push back on that. So you could be like the donkey, is carrying all these big books, all the sandal paste, everything, all the sandalwood, but it just doesn't get to enjoy that, right? So one thing they talk about in Vedanta Sara, adhikari. Adhikari means what? Competence. So you can have all these things, you can have all the choices in the world. Yes, Swami Sarvapriyananda, anything, but how much can we digest? And how much can we hold? And how much can we assimilate? So there's many boons. The boons are incredible. In fact, today we did India, Kolkata. I arranged a sadhu bhandara there. There are 100 sadhus were fed in Mayarbadi. So people were calling me up at midnight. Maharaj, we're here at Mayarbadi, some devotees, but we're about to take food right now. So it was a grand, a grand feast there. Mayurvadi is where Holy Mother passed away in Bagbajar. So many good boons. And on top of that, we have a new visitor. We have a cat in our monastery now. So that's something new too. Cat's name is Devi. Yet at the same time, so many things we can do, so many good things we're getting. Yet I refer you to an author named Marshall McLuhan. He wrote Understanding Media, the Extensions of Man. He writes, the boons of the net are real. They supply the thought, but they also shape the process of thought. And what the net seems to be doing is chipping away my capacity for concentration and contemplation. Whether I'm online or not, my mind now expects to take information in the way the net distributes it. In a swiftly moving stream of particles. Once I was a scuba diver in the sea of words. Now I zip along the surface like a guy on a jet ski. Let's all just contemplate on that a little bit. Again, that's what we were saying. Is there a virtual, I argued in my art, there's a virtual spillover. Per the laws of neuroplasticity, if you spend an inordinate amount of time on anything, this Nicholas Carr wrote about this. He said that someone who drives a taxi for many years, they actually see that the prefrontal cortex of their mind, it changes, and their ability to spatially see things becomes much more enhanced. While other things, maybe logic goes down. So as we're spending so much time on the net, what effect is that having? We have to think about this. And is this true, what he said? I just want to raise the question to all of you. Whether I'm online or not, my mind now expects to take in information the way the net distributes it, in a swiftly moving stream of particles. Is that true? Do we find that? Do we find now that we're not so patient? It's like, Swami, you better be funny, or otherwise we're out of here, you know? To keep you guys constantly entertained, right? So is that true, though? So we have to ask ourselves that question. I'll give you two examples I see of this. In Holy Mother's temple in Bellarmont, the holiest of all places we think in the entire world, that's where Holy Mother's body was burnt. And so we think all the 51 Shakti pits are right there. There I saw like a small girl. I had temple duty there. And she's like a 1-year-old and she's on the tablet doing like this. Okay, maybe that's just a small bacha in India. But no, last year I was in Harvard, just a couple of months ago. And I see in Harvard, in Daniel Gilbert's class on psychology, one of the most famous entertaining professors. Yet I was looking at this was an undergraduate student. I see many of the students, they're on their internet doing something completely else. So these things, do they have real life? And what does that do to our system of thought? What does that do to our logical thinking? How is it affecting us? These are things that we can all think about. Actually, if I had my way, I'd like it to break this up and say, what do you guys think right now? But this is a lecture. Anyways, there's two ways. Swami Prabodhanandaji used to say that technology is good as a slave, but not as a master. So this is the thing. How do we know we're the master, not the slave? It's very difficult, especially when the technology itself is now collecting information. It's not inert. It's collecting information on us. It maybe knows our tendencies better than we do. And it's hacking into us. And I don't know if anybody here works in this field, but afterwards, if you do, please let me know. It's learning our tendencies, learning what we do, what we don't do. And, it's like Ramakrishna mentioned this in the Kautamrita, the gospel, that, if you, the molasses, if you live, the doctor was going to give the prescription. No, he said that if you always live in the company of lust and greed, how can you become a sadhu? That's for us, that's for monks. But then how can you do that? Because the mind will always be in that, it will always be in that atmosphere, right? Same thing with the internet. If the net is now, we're trying to stay away from things, but it's always like, say I like Haagen-Dazs, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, chocolate cookie dough. And so say that, that comes up now, they start putting that every day. They, according to neuroscientists, the mind willpower is a limited quantity. It's usually strongest in the morning, but it diminishes through the day. So it's like a force field. If you keep hitting at that again and again, what's going to happen after some time, right? The force field gives away. Again, these are things we have to think. I'm just putting these ideas out there, and we have to think about these things. Now, there's objections to this. Some will object that internet is a view that technology is merely a neutral tool that is entirely subservient to the conscious wishes of their users. Instrumentalists claim that the internet, like all other inventions, yes, it's an inner tool and human beings have full control over it. In contrast, there's something called technological determinism. Has anybody heard this term? That's okay. I wrote the article. I also forgot what it meant till today. And that means that technology shapes and influences society as well as individuals. Now, Nicholas Carr explained that there are 4 types of technologies. Number 1, some technologies increase our physical capabilities, like the fighter jet, the exoskeleton suit, and so on, right? We can, what is it? The telescope. Through the telescope, I can see to the farthest reaches of the universe. This is expanding my 5 sense organs. Number 2, these were physical capabilities, excuse me, like the fighter jet exoskeleton. Number 2, inventions that extend the range of our senses, like microscopes, telescopes, and amplifiers. Number 3, technologies that enable us to reshape nature to better serve our needs and desires, like the reservoir, genetically modified food products, desalinization of the ocean. And number 4, intellectual technologies. These help us to support or extend our mental powers. These include instruments that help us to comprehend the written word, like dictionaries, to find and classify information. This is no longer the Dewey Decimal System. I think that's that's like now, Gen Z will not know what that was, what that is. The Dewey Decimal System. That's like going back to the cave time, Now, to formulate and articulate ideas, to take measurements and perform calculations, and finally, to expand the capacity of our memory. So intellectual technologies include the map, mechanical clock, printing press, calculator, computer, mobile phone, and now the internet. But now, what do we do with AI? I think you will have to add like a 5th category. I don't know what to do with that. What do you guys think? What should we do with AI? Does it fit into any of these 4 categories? So we talked about the linear mind. So the linear mind developed after the printing press in 1492. And Carr explains that the natural state of the human brain, like that of the brain of most of our relatives in the animal kingdom, is one of distractedness, to shift our gaze, and hence our attention from one object to another. Like the baby, right? She's not yet fully developed, right? So she's looking all around, looking, observing. What's here? To read a book was to practice an unnatural process of thought, one that demanded sustained, unbroken attention to a single static object. They had to forge or strengthen the neural links needed to counter this instinctive distractedness. Doesn't this sound like Raja Yoga Sutras? What we talk about the Yoga Sutras, this Vrittisarupyam mitaratra, that the mind, we're always identifying with every thought and the feeling of the mind. So our ultimate goal Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Suppress all of that. Same thing they're talking about here. So reading, the process of reading was something that was very unique. And he argues that over the last 500 plus years, society encouraged concentration, deep thought, originality. There's one book, Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Okay. He talks about it, how the disciplined mind, Benjamin Franklin had so many different types of inventions. Same thing with Booker T. Washington, so many inventions. So over the last 500 years, they made these libraries. What are libraries? They're not open source, they're cloistered. We go, we sit in one small cubicle, and what is the idea? To just focus. I think that Sarvapriyananda gave this talk, 3 powers of the mind. One of the powers was what? To cut off. Second was what? To focus. And the third, dharana shakti, to hold. Hold it. So ironically, study of books helped us to cultivate these faculties, this unusual process of concentration. In fact, Von Beld, a research psychologist at King's College, London, he adds that the ability to focus on a single task, relatively uninterrupted, represents a strange anomaly in the history of our psychological development. Now, Nicholas Carr, the author I mentioned, he writes that reading was not only important, not only for the knowledge that was acquired from the author's words, but also for the way those words set off intellectual vibrations within our minds. Think about, what does that mean? The way those words set off intellectual vibrations in our minds. In our Upanishads, our Yoga Sutras, we're always trying to go, our knowledge starts with the stula, the gross, but it must progress from the stula, gross, to the subtle. We say sukshma, Bangla sukha, and finally to the karana, that's realization. So all knowledge must go to these 3 different phases. In fact, not only in spiritual knowledge, even in law, science, medicine, engineering, whatever the subject is, as we get more deep, more nuanced. Now, let's put a pushback against this. Is this true? You may say that, Swamiji, I'm still doing reading right now. I'm reading lots of stuff on the internet. Right? So we'll get to that, but I put down in the article I wrote down that what I felt 3 different, what are the benefits of reading? One is that we learn to get exposed to different points of views. We learn to see views other than our own. Secondly, we become increasingly logical, especially if it's a logical text, in our thinking and look for evidence to support our positions, rather than merely going by feeling and biased presuppositions. Third, we develop our ability to make association, inferences, and analogies to better understand the ideas being presented. This is more difficult to do. I know everyone loves lectures, but lectures is more difficult to do in lectures, actually. Everyone just think about that. We can have a question or we can have a discussion on this afterwards. What's the difference between watching a lecture and reading a book? Lectures are good, yes, but what's the difference? Is there any difference? Mind can reflect on it, yes. Right. In fact, I should say this, that yes, Sarvapriyanandaji, it's hard to catch him because it's all in just a talk, right? So we started in Kolkata, we had this Dvaita Ashram. I was the production editor for Buddha Bharata. the magazine started by Swami Vivekananda. So I started something new to boost our subscription. It was called Conversations with Authors. So there you have to put something in writing. And now let's go over what you said. So then you can just see that someone may say, okay, Advaita Vedanta is right here, right now. Then you can ask, okay, but isn't now Bhakti is also right here, right now, right? It's the Antaryamin, God's inside. We just don't see it. So these kind of back and forth questions. So that's one benefit of not just lectures, but also reading. You can reflect, you can think about it, you can raise questions. Otherwise, once I say some words, that's already gone in the past. That's already in the past. What you said, we don't even know. We don't have the ability anymore. We're not trained as court reporters. What did I say right now? So we lost that ability. Yet, that ability is the ability that Swami Sri Ramakrishna trained Master Mahashai. How many of you heard Master Mahashai, the compiler of the Gospel of the Ramakrishna? This is the training he gave. It was exactly like a court reporter. After one of the meetings, Ramakrishna asked Master Mahashai, Ami ki bollam? What did I say? And then Master Mahashai, he started saying what he heard. Then Thakur replied, no, that's not it. This is it. For he did that for a few times. Then after some time, he developed that ability to what we call Shravana, receive information without bias. In fact, this is how the ancient debates between different schools of India used to take place. The 6 different schools of philosophy, this, Advaita Vedanta, Sankhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, the different schools of Buddhism, this Yogacara, Shunyata, all these different Jainism, all these different schools going back and forth, interacting each other. But what is one of the first criterions that we have? This is what Shankaracharya insisted upon. You may say something. My first duty, I have to repeat what you said to your satisfaction. Only then can I give a rebuttal. So what are we doing now? Before you even finish your thing, I'm already, I didn't listen. I hear one word and then I'm already clocked back and ready to, And sometimes we don't even hear one word. We just shout against each other. I was in Harvard just last semester, just a few months ago. You see people just shouting slogans, not taking a position one way or another. We're apolitical, but just saying that. So the ability to cultivate thinking, arguably, is also done through deep reading. And we can see this actually. One noticeable trend in society is this tendency towards cancel culture, or to simply shut off and not listen to other points of view which are not consistent with our own. Coincidentally, the National Literacy Trust of the United States did a survey in 2019, which revealed that only 26% of under 18s spend some time each day reading. That was in 2019. Now that generation would be the college students. This is the lowest daily level recorded since the survey of children's reading habits began in 2005. It is also found that fewer children enjoy reading and that this dwindled with age. Nearly twice as many 5 to 8-year-olds as 14 to 16-year-olds said they took pleasure from reading. So what is the effect of just skimming on the internet, skimming shallow? Are we seeing those effects manifested in society? Attention deficit, yes, attention deficit disorder. So can it be that used to be that this would be something, they say that something with attention deficit disorder, this is something that's almost within everybody. It's just not manifested so much. So we can raise the question, and if there's any is there any neuroscientist here by any chance? Okay, just keep your eyes out, let me know. So can it also be that this thing can increase our attention deficit disorder? Do we see that with ourselves or some people who are in our lives? School classrooms. Yeah, right. School classrooms is one place. And so what's the difference? Okay, I'm reading. So what's the difference between reading a normal book and reading from the internet? What's the difference? Yeah, we all say we read on the internet. But Swamiji, that's biased. I do a lot of reading. So one academic, no, Nicholas Carr talked about this. When a printed book, whether it be a scholarly article or an old Victorian novel, gets transferred onto an electronic device that is connected to the internet, we automatically enter into an environment of distraction. And he quotes this. The words, when you try to read a Kindle, how many of you here have Kindles? Or do reading? Okay. Glenn, no?
Well, not a Kindle, but I read it on my phone.
Okay, but yeah, okay, wow. That's next level. The words become wrapped, he writes, the words become wrapped in all the distractions of the networked computer. Its linked and other digital enhancement propel the reader hither and yon. The linearity of the printed book is shattered. Remember, we were talking about what Nicholas Carr said, the linear mind gets shattered by not reading. The linearity of the printed book is shattered, along with the calm attentiveness it encourages in the reader. That's very striking, the calm attentiveness it encourages in the reader. One academic, I'm choosing the academics. This is not just, one academic, Christine Rosen, a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C., described her ordeal when reading Charles Dickens' novel, Nicholas Nickleby, on her Kindle. She writes, although mildly disorienting at first, I quickly adjusted to the Kindle screen and mastered the scroll and page turn buttons. Nevertheless, my eyes were restless and jumped around as they do when I tried to read for a sustained time on the computer. Distractions abounded. I looked up Dickens on Wikipedia, then jumped straight down the internet rabbit hole, following a link about a Dickens short story. 20 minutes later, I still had not returned to my reading of Nickleby on the Kindle. Now, this is an interesting thing. This is different than what, say a college student in the early 2000s, they would go sit in a library. You don't have, at that time, those distractions. You'll be distracted, you might look at the magazines. But what's the difference? The magazines doesn't know your mind and it doesn't know your tendencies and it's not trying to pull you down. Now these things, Glenn, you talk about the phone, the Kindle, the iPad, they know you, they may know you better than we know our own mind. And they, they know how to poke the honeycomb. And remember Vyasa said the mind goes towards God or towards the world. So they know how to take us, even towards the world, if we're concentrated, that's good, but they know how to take us towards a state of distraction. The above experience that she described may be described as a stream of consciousness reading, which is antithetical to the concentrated linear literary mind. Moreover, this fragmented state negatively affects, I talked about this in the article, this fragmented state negatively affects our long-term retention. How many find that it's more difficult to memorize information nowadays than it used to be? Okay. Now, if we have anyone from the Gen Z, Sarashti, next time bring your son, we can ask him some questions. He's in the 20s. If we have that, then we can ask, because they won't know. This is all they know. So they won't be able to compare what it was like before and what it's like right now. So what I was making the argument, and this goes back to spirituality, that we say the Shravana, in fact, our Upanishads before it used to be taught like this. How was it taught? That I would, in fact, in our classes in Bellarmont Training Center are still taught like this. I teach something to you. I teach Sanskrit to you. I teach a slokam. You have to be able to repeat to me what I said, wrote. You call it rote memory. Otherwise, we don't get to the lesson two. Now, what's happening if this, you may counter the argument. You may say, okay, Swamiji, long-term memory is no longer so essential. Why? Because everything's on the internet now. You know, anything, Swamiji, what do you want to know? You want to know, what do you tell me right now? I can help you. Yes, that's good in one sense. So internet does have a boom. Like for someone like me, like, so, you know, sometimes it's difficult to open that, what is it? The cap on the detergent, you know, sometimes it's really tricky, something like that. So you go to the internet, how to do that. So this is called what we call the resourceful mind. It's good for that. It's good for versatile knowledge. Yet at the same time, what did we encourage in our Upanishads? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, right? So Ramakrishna said that when we get any knowledge, spiritual knowledge, say your mantra that you just received initiation in. So to repeat it, to contemplate upon it, to contemplate upon the meaning of it. So if you didn't memorize your mantra and you had to keep looking at the internet, how would deeper knowledge come? So Ramakrishna used to say, this is for people from India, well, they chew the curd like the cow. How many have seen the cow? Okay, everyone from India, yeah. Everyone, you should all just raise your hand. Don't be shy, you know. You know who you are. So you see that the cow will just keep, you get tired just seeing the cow do that, you know. But it does that. So Ramakrishna says our knowledge has to be what my emasticated. Emasticated. And that knowledge, Swami Vivekananda said the same thing. It should be made emasticated to such an extent that it becomes, it goes into our blood, actually. Goes, we assimilate it to that level. So what happens if this knowledge, if not only spiritual knowledge, even our subject courses, if we don't memorize, how will we deepen that knowledge if it's not inside here? So people used to always critique rote learning, memorization, including myself. But now we've gone to such an extent that it's been tossed out, but there were some benefits to it too. Okay, so now we have 10 minutes left. So it's been a journey through some doom and gloom with a little light. Now let's said what can we do? How can, because we can't get away from the internet. And internet still now even just, this is outdated. Now AI is coming. So this will have to be part two. But AI might write the talk for me. So that's, you see, if AI wrote the talk for me, I'll be able to tell, but how much, what will I get from it, right? Yeah, but then what do I get from it? So then, that's true. But even as we're doing something, as Sarvadevanji, he was giving these classes in the Shanti Gita, at the end he says, thank you to you. Because the speaker gets so much out of it, right? So same thing, we have to be able to like, if you want the knowledge to be made your own, whether it's science, law, astronomy, whatever it may be, we have to first hold it. So that's where rote memorization, all these things need to be held. It can't be held on a hard drive. So these are the practices that, and we can have a discussion right when 12 o'clock goes. Number one, 5 practical tips. Incorporate the practice of reading printed books into our daily lives. The importance of reading printed books, not a computer, but in real time, cannot be overstated. As we have discussed, we must take some proactive steps to strengthen our linear literary mind. For the sake of preserving some of our fundamental traits, to be able to think, feel, and will with intensity and extensivity, which are necessary for spiritual practices. Bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, raja yoga. Number 2, apply this process of viveka, satasat vichar, right? In real time, in virtual time. When we go on the internet, we should try to avoid the tendency to be passive. Not easy to do. It's like when we sit in front of a TV on a Sunday afternoon watching football games, we turn it off. Yet with the internet, we must try to bring that into virtual time. This is in the Viveka Chudamani. How many of you have heard of the text or studied the text Viveka Chudamani? It's an Advaitic. Yogesh, okay, Yogeshananda Thought. So there's one line there which Swami Prabodhananda ji gave a further insight that this sword of discrimination, it's like a sword, it must be ready to cut, not only in real time, but also in the swapna avastha, in the dream state. So we should keep that sword of discrimination underneath our pillow, like the samurai warrior, take it out in all the 3 different states. It has to become our companion. So even in the internet as well, we cannot let that go. It has to become a habit. And we have to want that as well. We have to want to keep that, like to use that. Of course, you don't want to keep cutting everywhere. So that's why we say virag, anurag. In Bengali, Ramakrishna said, virag is cutting, and anurag is what? Attraction for the Lord. Keeping the mind, keeping it towards the Lord, God himself. So this is the second one. First one was incorporating the practice of reading printed books into our daily lives. Second is applying the process of discernment in real virtual time. Number 3, we should be very conscious in our dealings with the internet. Yeah, I mentioned it, and avoid the tendency towards passivity. One way to do this is to cultivate discipline by setting boundaries for ourselves when using the net. We should limit ourselves to using the net at specific times during the days and avoid going online at bedtime or before going to sleep. So we could, maybe we can form like a group. We can, my friend Purnima in Boston, she did this. She is really nice. She formed a group. We're all going to go to sleep by 10 o'clock. So this group of 5 ladies, they would all text each other, checking in, going to sleep right now. So maybe some type of community we can have for that as well, because it's not easy when trying to encounter these things. Secondly, when we were watching a YouTube video on, say, Vedanta, we should actively pay attention rather than simply passively listening. We should stop it. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Maybe watch 10 minutes. What did Swamiji say? Can I repeat what he said? Break it up into small chunks rather than watching something and then afterwards telling Swamiji, I saw your lecture. Wow. In Bengali, Maharaj apni khub bhalo bolechen. He spoke so well. And then the Maharaj will say, Ami ki bolam? What did I say? Then Ami jani na apni khub bhalo bolechen. I don't know what you said, but what you said is just no. So we have to, in fact, every 10 minutes, even in this type of a talk, you can review at that time. What did the speaker say? 5 minutes even. That can become a very powerful habit. Glenn, even in the courtroom, that's good too. Yes, what did they say? We don't have to go to the court reporter all the time. So we should be active participants, mindful observers, and critical thinkers while watching the net. Techniques include taking notes, pausing the video to check if we can recall what the speaker has said, and writing down questions that you would have for the speaker. And also seeking answers, not just writing questions, seek your own answers too, including the net. Be an active participant. Then the most important thing, once we leave this virtual world, let us go and interact with the real world. I think what was it, Friday evening, I went to this nearby, someone took me this, just a concert there. I saw so many open people and they were playing music. It was a beautiful thing. People are just in the outdoors, in the green grass. So that has to be done more. Or Stone Mountain, something like that. Walking in the wilderness, not losing that connection with nature. I think, what was her name? The Peace Pilgrim. Have any of you read that book, The Peace Pilgrim? Yeah, what a beautiful. So she said one thing, that it's very, very, very important to keep that connection with nature. Even walking barefoot, pulling out weeds. So we have lots of weeds there, just in case anyone. And actually our Vedanta Shiva, we should also do that too. Things with our hands, we can all do, that'll be nice. Engaging in selfless service of others with friends. On that line, we're now talking about it here. There's an elderly aging community. Devotees who have their whole life contributed to the center. Now they're unable to come anymore. This is not just the center. This is centered all around the Vedanta societies around America. They can't come anymore and they're stuck in their place. Depression is setting in. So that's not good for them and that's not good for us. So again, this is part of it. Once we leave the internet, how can we engage as a community? How can we serve the needs of others? How can we get more involved? This is also what we call Shiva Yoga. Shiva Yoga is, yes, we need Shiva Saturday and other things. We need all your talents, but it also extends into the community as well. So that this can become an interactive community where we can really serve each other's needs. So with that, I'm about to close, but I just like to just repeat the main points in conclusion. And if we apply the technique, one of you should actually repeat the main points. Maybe we'll do that next time. So the point number one, we talked about this Nicholas Carr. He wrote this book called The Shallows, and he made the argument that with the decline in reading the printed book that has been cultivated over the last 500 years, we have gradually losing our ability to focus and concentrate. And I gave examples of how we see that in real life. We see that everywhere now that the ability to focus, concentrate is less. The ability to accept the points of views of others has also become less. So we talked about the benefits of reading from a printed book, how it allows us to see the point of others. It allows for critical thinking. It allows for contemplation. That's one point. Second point, on top of Nicholas Carr's argument, I furthered that argument and said that not only that, but as spiritual aspirants, this tendency to be in the virtual world increasingly is compromising our sustainability for deep thinking, feeling, and willing, which are all fundamental and critical for spiritual life in the path of Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. So we gave this whole narrative, and then we talked about, to conclude, that what are the ways that we can counter this so that we can preserve our linear literary mind. And we said that one thing is to try to incorporate this practice of reading into our lives. We can maybe even we can make it more virtual or just a community. We can all say, what book are you reading right now? Something like that to encourage that, give a community affirmation to that. And secondly, to apply this process of vichara, discrimination, in virtual time, so that we don't lose our critical faculties. And I finally said that if we spend, per the laws of neuroplasticity, whatever we spend too much time in a certain zone doing, that becomes our permanent state. And that changes the structure of our brain. This is according to neuroscientists. So to protect against that, we should read more, apply this process of vichara in virtual time, avoid being passive when we listen to lectures, take a stop after 10 minutes. What did the person say? What are my questions? Let me seek the questions on the internet. Let me seek the questions myself. Then ask the teacher. And finally, when we leave this virtual world, let us interact and be fully in the real world. Let us go back into nature. Let us go back into community with others. Yes. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. So we covered a lot. We're gonna have question answer now, but I want everyone just to think about it a little bit. That what is let's just think about the principles before we just start off in asking. And this doesn't necessarily even have to be a question. It can be a question or it can be a discussion. But the only thing is, we have to, when we have this, we have like a 1 minute rule. It's got to be in 1 minute, otherwise it could be a long soliloquy. So that's what I would encourage now. So think about it, and we can open the platform. And and Shivadas has the mic in his hand. So raise your hand and then say your question, and then we'll move this.
Well, like you said, I want this.
Please say your name.
Hey, I'm you guys. I used to come here.
Okay, what's your name?
Anshu.
Anshu, okay.
Hey, what's up? So this is more of a discussion thing, and I'm sure you considered this, but I think what you've been saying about linearity needs to be balanced with a non-linear form of thinking, like convergent thinking versus divergent thinking, right? It's like the shift from Newtonian physics to quantum physics, and that's essential for creativity and seeing patterns between disparate facts that aren't necessarily apparently obvious to a linear mind, where you need a broad-based, non-linear form of thinking to integrate things that that's the essence of creativity, right?
Okay, no, you hold the mic for a second.
Oh,
That's
okay.
that's a good point. That's what I like. That's a really good point. But only thing is you have to speak a little bit
Oh.
slowly and into it so people can hear it.
Oh, did you guys not hear that?
Whatever, but it just,
All right, cool.
just, yeah. So let me put a pushback on that. Let me ask you for so you said the divergent mind versus the linear mind. Can you just explain to us what you mean by the divergent mind?
So they have psychological studies, and they give children like a paperclip or something. They say, tell me how many uses you can come up with for this one paperclip or a brick. So children, children, they come up with blah, 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 blah. Half the ideas are crazy, but you give it to an adult and they can't come up with as many uses because they're so practical, right? They have to think in very concrete terms. So it turns out children are a lot better at divergent thinking. If you look at very creative Nobel Prize winners and stuff, they're super childlike often, they're kind of just like, wow, like Ron Krishna and stuff.
That's interesting. So you're saying that so you're saying that they can employ both. Then?
Yeah, you need a balance, absolutely.
You need a balance. It's interesting. That's a really interesting. So I'm sorry, your name.
Anshu?
Anshu. Anshu made a really, I think, a very, very brilliant point, and I like this. So we need a balance. So we need to preserve the linear mind and balance it with the divergent mind. So I would put Anshu maybe a pushback against that. I agree with you, but then maybe what's happening now is the linear mind's being pushed off the stage.
Yeah.
And
Culturally.
so then how do we, because I think now society's encouraging more of this divergent mind. So how do we then, so I agree. So we have to have a balance of both. So how do we preserve the linear mind? Not to go, but so we have to bring it back to a balance. Excellent. Okay, then after you.
Swami, that was it was a really great talk. It's very practical.
Yeah, you have to say your name.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just said your name for you, but go
Right.
ahead.
One thing that really struck me when you said that we can be passive on the internet, and it made me reflect. Being a millennial, I kind of grew up with no internet and then a lot of internet, and it made me think of the evolution of the way we engage on social media. So I remember the first social media platform being MySpace, and that was very active. You had to do some HTML coding. So it was very an active process. But then as it evolved from MySpace to like Facebook was content heavy. You would write content, so it was still active. And then in Instagram, well, Twitter, then the actual words became smaller, and Instagram became just pictures, and then video, and now TikTok, it's all video in a loop. And so you can see the evolution of a active process back in like the early 2000s, where you're actively engaging with the computer and trying to manipulate it, to now it's more of a passive, almost like watching TV, but in very short second clips, so it just zaps your attention. And then when you said being passive on the internet, I'm thinking about social media use, and I'm like, social media today is 100% passive for the most part. You're just
Yeah.
kind of watching and sitting back. So it was a very interesting thing that you said.
So what would you say, what do you think the solution is? What do you think? Just follow up on that.
I think to your point, counter any passive activity that you do with active. If you're going to, get on Twitter, set particular time frames, or I'm going to use the internet for X, Y, and Z, and that's what you use it for. Not allow yourself to get, bombarded by the various ads pulling you somewhere to buy this and that. Because like you said, they know your tendencies, they know how you act on. So it's a lot of temptation, but going before you even start on social media or online, have an intent, and then make sure you follow that intent and don't sort of run. That's what I probably would suggest.
Okay.
My name is Chidekananda, Sadha for short. Swamiji, mine is a question and a comment today. In preparation for today's talk, I read your article and I found it very intense and very intellectual. I do appreciate talking in person here, and it's a very beautiful article. I encourage everybody to read it. Also, some of the references. You talk about wild tips then, and which you already said here. I find it extremely useful and very practical. And I did talk about so many times about Kindle, as the article said, even Kindle is not recommended you read actual books. So, but there is practical difficulties to the library and
Yeah.
you waste time and or if you want to buy a book, it's expensive. Whereas library books you can get free, even Kindle you can get books. There are advantages and disadvantages. So as you said, my son gave me a Kindle, otherwise I couldn't afford it or I couldn't buy it. I actually looked up what is this Kindle mean. It's an unusual word, as article correctly said. I looked up immediately in the dictionary, in the modern dictionary.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna thank you so much for that comment. So I want to build on that point a little bit that it does have some uses though, and then we'll get to you were next, right? Okay, then we'll get to it. Does have some uses, and one of the uses is that for elderly people, it can increase the cognitive ability. That is there too. So it can do that, but the thing is that that's not heading towards depth. That's going towards maintenance of the cognitive faculties. Okay, so that they have cognitive. So what I mean by that is otherwise before there might not be much stimulation, but for elderly people, the internet can be a source of stimulation. It's not the best one, but it's better than feeling lonely. So it can fill that emotional and cognitive vacuum. So that's one thing that can be done there, right there. Thank you so much for the comment. I think she has.
one more.
Okay.
Yeah. So I looked up the word Kindle.
Yeah.
Actually, I found the meaning at that time and I understood, but again, it didn't register in my short-term memory.
Yeah.
So I couldn't recall from the long-term memory because it's not registered in the short-term. It did not go to the long-term.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, next question. Okay. We have to kind of. Thank you so much. Okay. Please state your name.
My name is Sujata, and I just wanted to kind of get back to what you're saying about linear and non-linear thinking.
Yes.
And isn't it the same thing as right brain and left brain? And that one of them is supposed to be the scientific thinking, the linear thinking versus the creative artist who goes off in all directions, kind of like what you said.
Yes, I'm not enough I do believe so. Is anybody an expert in that? So I don't want to speak, but I'm not an expert. I do believe that there's a strong, anyone who has that.
I'm
yeah.
not an expert
Yeah.
by no means, but there is Jill Bolte Taylor who's kind of written on this topic.
Yeah.
And so I think, but when you study something, or you read something or study something, that's the job of the left brain. Right brain has got nothing to do with it. But when you actually implement it, or you are trying to be creative when you write something, then at that time your right brain might kind of contribute to that. Sometimes I feel like right brain produces something in form of poetry or images where like you can write a whole book of like 5,000 pages, but you can instead just describe a visual or a picture that can mean many things to different people. And so that's the thing of the right brain. It's like it gives you a vision and a picture instead of like linear words or things like that. But that's what nothing like if I'm reading a book, if I'm listening to a lecture, right brain has no role. I feel that's the time to apply your left brain.
Okay.
I have, I don't remember where I read, but,
Microphone.
I did read a great breakdown where, they not only look at the right brain, left arm in terms of linear or non-linear, both can be linear or non-linear. It doesn't mean an artist is non-linear. If
Yes.
you look at an artist, he's extremely focused when he's drawing something. He's not swiping the phone
Yeah.
or like, oh, I'm looking at this and then, oh, I'm drawing too, right? If you look at there are a lot of people who sit in the museums and create art, right? They're extremely linear, I would say, but would their mind be on only one line? Probably not.
Can I ask something? How many would be interested like in, because I'm really fascinated in this topic. How many would be interested like, because I'm just raising the idea, more like a discussion, like a workshop. What do you guys think? How many think would find that kind of practical, interested to attend such a thing? Okay. Maybe we can, I like these types of things too, and I like something that we can, maybe we can, I like these things, you can put new habits into place, and I think that that's what we're trying to emphasize today, how to cultivate new spiritual habits that are not, that, so we can use this new technology to go forward in our spiritual life. So let me think about that. Okay, please say your name back there.
My name is Abdul Jabbar.
Okay,
Yes, so I think I know you as Deepak, no Swami.
okay.
Your father was my teacher. I did your.
Oh, Dr. Jabbar. Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, nice to meet
So
you.
I think I'm unique in this group. I'm the only person.
Yes.
I research your diets, scientific presentations, also worked in the lab.
Okay,
Also
wow.
research.
So my father's a professor at UCLA, and Dr. Jabbar is one of his students, and so he was a microbiology professor for almost 50 years. And so he was one of his prize students as well. I think you live in Atlanta, right?
1983, I joined the lab.
Okay, great,
So
great.
that's 41 years ago.
Okay,
So
very
I'm
good.
now with the, and I told you.
Emory University, right?
So, a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
It's a lot of learning in terms of what, I didn't get I don't know where this was posted, your article, I would like to have that.
Okay, sure. It's on the website. You can
so
sign up. Yeah, it's on the
I'll do
website.
that. So in terms of the importance of reading, I come from a different tradition, Islamic principles.
Yeah.
So if you, when the Quran was revealed to Prophet, he was illiterate,
Yes.
he was not educated. When he said, I could not read it, that was his response. When the angel came and told him, read.
Right.
So then he said, I cannot read. Then there's a second command, you should read. That's the way he just started reading. The revelations came. That is the cave, in a meditative status.
Yes.
So I think your conception of reading and then meditation, concentration, I think this is the kind of ancient kind of wisdom.
Yes.
I think that that's really, every tradition really emphasizes that point of view. So even when you're talking about remembering stuff, The prophets, he has left his legacy in writings, then his fellows, the Sahabas, followers, they wrote down what he did in this life. There's a collection also, authentic, also not authentic, hadiths, they call it, you know. So clearly, kind of when I was listening to you, it's kind of brought back this kind of, I read a lot of books about the Prophet recently, 3 books, fantastic books. I don't read virtually. I look at stuff for reading scientific, but when I want to read, I want Kindle. I have to have this book in my hand. So that's very important, you know. So I think it's remarkable. I think I was looking at here sitting with listening to you. I listened to your dad's presentation, study presentation, influence of viruses. His dad is an expert. Influence virus. I changed from bacteria to influenza virus in your dad's lab.
Wow.
He was great in terms for my career. He was one of the prominent persons to change the trajectory in the career.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's always grateful for him.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want?
Hi, this is
Okay, yeah, then she's.
Can people-
My name, Vijay. Thank you very much for what I heard from you. It was such a remarkable comparison in my mind as to how close the different faiths are. Just like you mentioned about the prophet listening, the same thing in our tradition, the rishis, they heard the word from the gods, and the rest of us kept learning to Shravanam, Mananam. So much commonality. Wanted to mention to you my thought on your statement about Vichara. Avoid being passive listener. And what has become of us all? We are passive listeners and we are passive observers. To such an extent, we have become passive human beings. To such an extent that we meet someone so casually as if we don't even know each other as human beings to that extent sometimes. I believe to begin with, most of us, if we are very much into internet or telephone, we need to withdraw from the telephone. I see some of the young people today, my own son, being so absorbed in telephone that even while eating dinner, the telephone is on the side, the screen is on.
Yeah. Thank you.
And hard for me to convince him that the screen can be shut off and wait. We are together now.
Yeah, that's a big, I agree with that. That's you have pictures like that. Okay, I'm sorry, she's wait. So thank you so much for that.
You mentioned about peace building,
Yeah.
and I have 5 of them here.
Okay.
If anybody would like copy of these,
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be
if
great.
anyone wants more, I have more.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, I think you're next to excuse me, the waiting list. Thank you so much. Okay, thank
For
you.
everybody.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, please state your name and
And what we shared, that is very strong. If I may, this was one of the most stimulating lectures.
oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much.
Yes. Yesterday, I think from learning, whether it is technology, whether it's cooking, whether it is drinking, writing, the first step, the habit has to be introduced very, very early in life for all habits, including my own.
Yeah.
If a child sees parent reading, I remember as a very young child, 6 years old, I used to see my dad
Yeah.
going to library and reading big volumes of Vedanta. And I used to tease him, what are all those thick books and what is this all Vedanta and philosophy? And I used to mock him and tease him. But that time, what I did not understand, that he sowed his seeds of reading such serious books. And then second thing I want to add is to discuss what real discuss with your,
Yeah.
of course, the age of the child matters.
Yes.
But at my third point, then I'll shut up. Usually times are perhaps the most educative
Yes.
manner of teaching. One to one, people Nisha sitting near at the feet of the, maybe not at the feet, across the teacher, but that one-to-one dialogue I taught him and the Nishas. And that's when I found that works is more efficient way of teaching. And then the son, I always told them that you may note down your questions and ask so that they also start developing thinking and summarizing and reproducing, retelling.
Yes.
So all of this, what you said, makes perfect sense. And that's the best way. Reading, thinking, and dialogue.
Yeah.
Talking with somebody, explaining to somebody what you did. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. The Dolly is next. Dolly is.
Namaskar, my name is Dhoni. I'm just sharing my observation as I work with children. When I was working in Canada, I saw that I was working as a different office here. The children comes, our center does not have, we don't allow any like electronics device. So we do, our center didn't have TV, our center didn't have computer, only office staff, but teachers can use that, but no children are allowed. But when they goes to the school, because it was inside the school or center, I have noticed even the kindergarten classroom, like one classroom, then two classroom, the teachers are teaching through internet. They are watching videos, they are learning from there and like that videos, and they are coming to our center. Then they want to, but we don't have a center, so they have to see book, they have to read book, they have to play with the toys. But that time I noticed that they are not interested in any more books because they don't want to spend time because they are learning through internet. When I came back here, I worked as a pre-K assistant teacher. I have seen like 4 years old, 4 to 5 years old children. Still they are teaching from the like electronics. They're playing the music, they are dancing, they are teachers are reading the books, but we have a book center, but children are not going there while reading the books or watching, like focusing on what I can say, like to the pictures. They are not interested because they are used to watching in computer, like moving persons, moving animals, moving, even though they are not looking at in front, but they are looking at visually, like virtually. So they are not interested in the books that the pictures are not moving. It's my observation, and I can reflect on myself now, like when what I did when my son was young. When my son was young, I was in school. So and my son was only child in my house. So what I do, he needs company. So he was asking me rather than his parents, his grandparents, they're all here. But he wanted me. So what I did, I gave him. That's my mistakes. Now I realize what I did. So that's what I'm saying. So I did, okay, watch the videos on the computer because that time computer was available and I was studying. So my son was young, but he used, I feed him. I started to feed him the first electronics that's became in him now like how he is. Now now when I told him, okay, you read, why you not reading the books? Then he said, why I have to read the books, mommy? If you go on the computer, you can see. Okay, he said, mommy, if I miss in the computer, like class teachers something, if I go computer and I focus on the internet, I can see that. So that's the way. When I studying here in Canada, then I have to like, as the person said, the books is very expensive. So I can go Kindle, I can buy the virtual books in online. Then I started reading on the internet. Trust me, I can say I read only half of the page, then my eyes get tired because I'm not used to reading on the computer. I'm not used to doing it. So my eyes get tired. Then I have to say, no, I cannot read. Then the next time I have to go through, okay, what page I was there, I have to remember that page number, that where I was reading. So I have to point out that. So that's I struggle reading on the computer. But my son said, no, mommy, I don't need book. I can read through. You cannot. That's your problem because you cannot do, but I can do. But now I can see that his problem, always he stay on the computer, his eyes gets red, but still he will not. I'm just sharing my observation. Even we want to start that, as much is said, we have to do it as starting at home, like children have to read the book, focus on the book, question yourself, write yourself. But the children are, they will be keep going on, like when they will go to school, they will see, oh, each thing coming on. So nobody wants to work hard when they get easy things available.
That's true.
That's my observation.
So real quick, Mother, it's not really. Just wanted to share my memories of what we used to call or snail mail, the postal mail versus email. When a family member, came to the United States, in those days, they would send letters in an envelope, and we would read the whole envelope word to word, and in answer, we would read and then reply to every question. Now, when the email we send or receive, if there's more than one question, we do not get the answer. If we send 5 questions, there may be one answer. We have to repeatedly send it to get the answers.
Yeah.
So that's one experience. But on a positive note, my experience, my son is now a father, and I used to struggle to control his screen time. Now he's so strict with his daughter. He tells me, Mom, do not give your phone. If by chance he catches me giving my granddaughter my phone, you're giving up the phone. So there's hope. A generation that grew up like that
Yeah.
have realized the consequences and are now raising their children more away from the electronics.
Yes. Okay, that's good. Okay, I think it's well, we have I think we'll it's 12:30 right now. So what will we do?
Just 1 minute, I think this whole conversation is about media, not about the.
Yeah.
There was a time, like you said, printing press came, before printing press, you were more dependent on shooting other than the reading.
Yeah.
So it's a changing time, now time is changing, so it's, we have to just adapt it.
Yeah.
This thing is, what is the balance where we keep the balance?
Yeah.
Between each one of them,
Okay. So, okay. It's 12:30 now, so we'll just stick. Okay. Yeah. I have a mic. Okay, that's fine. So just a couple of things I wanted to add. But everyone just wait for one moment, please. I just a couple of announcements for everyone news. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we'll make the announcement. So a couple of things is this. First, next Saturday, Eves is going to be taking us on a tour of Martin Luther King, places associated with Martin Luther King. And I know lots of people will say that, well, Swamiji, I've already been there. No, this is going to be something different. This is in line with the talks I've been giving on the pilgrimage mindset, which means that, and I think Eves, you can give us some readings to do ahead of time. And what we want to do is actually, we're trying to connect on Martin Luther King's his transformation of character. He had transformation of character. He became you could say some type of spiritual power was there. And his last speech that he gave, he knew his own death was coming. He was fearless at that time. So Swami Vivekananda always said this, just studying the lives of great people, you always get something. So it's really for our own inspiration, actually. you know, books don't do that, places don't do that, but when we go there and we read these things ahead of time, what we talked about these principles, the pre-pilgrimage mindset, reading about it, what happened, then we're going there. These will be guiding us. We'll have discussions there as well, you know, discussions about his life and what, you know, what people find inspirational. Maybe I'll ask a few of you to say what beforehand, like what touches you or what moves you about that, what she's gonna say, what moves us about that. Okay, so that's one thing. Second announcement is that so I was supposed to leave on August 4th, but I'll be my brother just told me, so I'll be staying on. I'll be staying on until I get posted at the headquarters. So I'll be staying on indefinitely until then. I don't know, who knows? So, so I'll be continuing this Yoga Sutra class. I'll be continuing just starting from the beginning now, Yoga Sutras. And this will be more like a class that we're going to give the reading in advance. We'll be using Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga, one Swami Hariharananda's is Yoga Sutra, and one Edwin Bryant's. So if you can, if any of you are interested, you can, we'll try to put attach the readings for that. And these will be, we'll try to give the clips at least to read those for those readings. And that's point number 2. And I think point number 3 was that I think on Fridays, we'll just do a very, Friday evening, we'll do a very informal, just to everyone, it won't be on Zoom. I think it'll be like what Brother Shankara used to do, just inside the monastery living room, a reading from Karma Yoga. This won't be my reading, it's just, it'll be more like people who come, each will like read a paragraph and it'll be just like a discussion. So that'll be something different from these. And that's it. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Would like to make a closing comment, Maharaj?
Okay, go ahead.
So
This is, you should get the mic and then also say who you are because they might not know you. Okay, you want to just say?
I'm really quick. Namaste, my name is Shailesh Kaur. I'm the president of the society. Thank you so much for coming. I'm seeing so many of you in person after a long time, and you know we have been seeing so many of you, you know, the last almost 4 or 5 weeks. Swami has been here, and now he's extended. So we have a program where we invite visiting Swamis, and such talks, they are inspiration. This is like the spark which we need in our life. And so keep this center going. You know, just want to let you know that this is a private center, and it is completely sustained on the donations by our devotees. So please keep the center in your thoughts and prayers, and also, you know, when you can support the center financially, that will be it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just meet every year as they're going outside, and then there's going to be snacks inside the monastery, so please come for the snacks as well.